What up, what up? It's Garage Gym Homie. And today I'm talking about my thoughts about therapy for drug addicts and alcoholics. Is it worth it? Before we get into this here, please click the subscribe button. I got content coming out every day for you. So click subscribe and let's get into this, man. I just want to show you how beautiful it is out here, man. Look at this. Got my flower boxes going. This is my setup. I've shown you it before, but now it's all set up with the flowers and everything. Very exciting for me, man. So this video here, I made a commitment. I'll put the supplements on hold, man. They keep coming in the mail and yada yada. They don't stop. So I'm here just to put them aside, man, because I said I wanted to talk about more stuff that I want to talk about. So I want to talk about therapy to treat drug addiction and alcoholism. Now, I just want to start by saying I have a lot of experience with therapy. I've gone to therapy since I was 6 years old. When my parents were getting divorced when I was age 7, they sent me to therapy because I acted out, man, as a young kid. And the reason I acted out is because it's always been in me. Something was different with my brain. I'm an addict alcoholic. Now, just because I didn't pick up drugs at that age, I was wired like that. I always had defiant behavior. I always acted out, always had to have attention on me as a kid, class clown, all that. So my parents started sending me to therapy for many years. And they probably should have been in therapy. That's the truth. It was useless. They couldn't say I was depressed. They couldn't say I was anxious. They couldn't classify me as a drug addict or alcoholic at 6 years old. So, you know, they were spinning their wheels with me, man. Put me on ADD medication and, you know, second grade. It was disgusting, homie. So anyway, man, I just want to talk about a lot of addicts or alcoholics go to therapy to treat their addiction. And I want to talk about why that will never work, ever. Now, there's a difference between a heavy drinker and an addict or alcoholic, and I could talk about that in future videos. See, a heavy drinker, you might think he's an alcoholic or addict, but when push comes to shove, the heavy drinker can stop, or the addict. They might be able to be threatened with a divorce, and they say, you know what, I'm getting too close, I'm going to stop, and they never look back. A heavy drinker might be able to just show up to AA meetings every day and never drink or get high again. But that's not really a true addict or alcoholic. See, a true addict or alcoholic, somebody, and I could talk about it in future videos, an addict or alcoholic is a two-part illness. The first part is the physical and the second part is the mental. This is just how it is, homies. Now, what makes a heavy drinker and an addict or alcoholic, someone with the disease, different? Me as an addict or alcoholic, first is the physical. Once I ingest drugs or alcohol, something happens to me where my body reacts to it as an allergy. And I totally lost the power of choice to drink or get high. The phenomenon of craving comes up and I no longer have a choice. Completely powerless. Then there's the mental. When I don't have drugs or alcohol, I'm obsessing about drugs or alcohol. That's the mental obsession. So I have to have the physical and the physical allergy. I no longer have a power of choice once I ingest the drugs or alcohol, and the mental. When I don't have it, I'm obsessing. I have the mental obsession. If I don't have those two things, I'm probably a heavy drinker. And a heavy drinker can turn into an addict or alcoholic when they cross the line. But an addict or alcoholic can never go back and turn into a heavy drinker. It's like once a cucumber turns into a pickle, it can never turn back to a cucumber or whatever. So the point is, a lot of addicts or alcoholics and treatment centers they have people in therapy. And I just want to read one thing here. I want to read one thing to you. This is from the AA Big Book on page 24. I'm going to talk about my experience with therapy and why it'll never work for an addict or alcoholic. So the first thing is this. On page 24, it says, the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force, the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. That means, to sum it up, I can't think my way out of this disease. I can't, if I have the disease of alcohol and drug addiction, I can't think my way out of it. Meaning, when all those times I went to jail and I called my dad, he said, I'm gonna help you out of this one this time, but I want you to remember how bad jail was next time you think about getting high or doing something dumb. That might work for a heavy drinker, but an addict or alcoholic will never bring into their mind how bad it was even a week ago. That is not enough to stop you from drinking or getting high. It's not a logical thing. You can't think your way out of this disease. So a real addict or alcoholic needs something more. See, therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, it's about thinking your way out of things. It's about changing your thinking with your thinking. See, if my problem is in my head, my heart's not the problem, it's my head that's the problem. I can't go to my head for the solution. I have to get out of my head and into here. And only spirituality is going to do that. So the point is, man, AA did for me in a matter of weeks, in a matter of minutes, what years of therapy could never accomplish. And I just want to set the record. When I say AA, I don't mean AA meetings. That's just the socialization part of AA. See, a lot of people go to AA meetings and they sit there for an hour a day and they talk about how bad their day was, or they talk about whatever. This is AA, the big book of AA. This is actual AA. AA is a 12-step spiritual program of action. And what it does is it builds you a relationship with God through these 12 steps that can solve your problem for you that you couldn't solve yourself. So 2 weeks after I was sober, I did what was called the third step, which is where I said a prayer. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self so I can better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. That's the third step prayer from the book. And I said it from the deepest place in my heart 2 weeks after I was sober. And I walked out of there with my sponsor. And God removed my obsession to drink and get high. And since 2 weeks after being sober, I have not had one thought or feeling to drink or get high. It was completely removed from me like that. And what that third step prayer is a contract with God or your higher power, whatever you want to call it. You could have your own conception of God. To me, it's God. It can't be the doorknob or the light bulb, or it's got to be a higher power, something that can solve your problem for you. So I'm not scared to use the word God. God's the only way for me. The third step prayer that I just said to you, and I say that every morning because it's my prayer, that is a contract with God that we're going to move on to do the rest of the steps immediately. So immediately after saying the third step prayer, I have to move on to doing the rest of the steps. Now, that means that I can't wait between that third step and going on to the fourth step, because every second that I wait, my disease gives me a chance to destroy me and say, Ari, you don't need to do that fourth step. You could take it easy. Easy does it. Take your time with these steps. See, if I have a disease, if I have cancer, and the doctor says, hey man, you have cancer, you have to treat it now, am I going to say, oh no, I'm going to take my time with this cancer and let it grow a little bit and see what happens? Heck no, homies. I'm gonna treat it immediately. That's why this disease is one of the most deadly diseases in the world. It's the only disease that tells me I don't have a disease. That makes it very, very deadly. This is addiction, and alcoholism is the only disease that says to you, you're okay, man. You don't really have a disease. You don't really have a problem. And a lot of people say that third step prayer from their head and not their heart. And they don't stick to that contract with God. And then they go back to drink or get high, because you can't maintain that power unless you follow through with that contract. So I can't think my way out of this, and therapy is about thinking your way out of things. Now, that doesn't mean that therapy can't be useful. See, I've never personally struggled with clinical depression, like real anxiety. It's all been my disease of addiction that's caused these problems. And there hasn't been one thing in my life that these 12 steps have not been able to clear up for me and guide me through. Now, I don't want to come on here and say AA and the 12 steps are the only way. I will never say that. I'm a true believer that having a relationship with God is the only way for addicts or alcoholics. What these 12 steps do is they give you a perfect blueprint for how to form that relationship, how to clean up the past, make amends, wipe your slate clean, help other people. That's what these 12 steps do. So I would never go another way, because these 12 steps were made perfectly in the 1930s by the first 100 people who recovered from alcoholism, wrote the book sharing their experience, that we too can recover. Now, a lot of people in AA say, I'm a recovering addict or alcoholic. See, I don't say recovering. The first thing that happens when you open this book, the first thing, see, I get fired up when I talk about this. It says the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. Recovered. They use the word recovered many times in this book. That doesn't mean recovering. I'm a recovered addict, alcoholic. That means you can get well. See, I sat in AA meetings with all these sayings, all these years that are misguided. There's so many cliches and sayings, enough sayings to kill an addict or alcoholic. You never recover. You're always recovering. No, that's not what the book says. The book says you can be a recovered addict and alcoholic. That's a message of hope right there. I can get well. Sobriety has not been a struggle for me. See, a lot of people come to me, I say, I'm going on 9 years sober. They go, oh, I know it must be tough. It's always a battle. That's what they teach you at treatment centers. That's the problem with therapy and treatment centers. It's not a battle. See, they don't understand what it's like to have God remove your obsession to drink or get high like that. Now, not everybody recovers. So I walked out after 2 weeks being sober as a recovered alcoholic. That means it's an event. It happens. And then you move forward, and it's time for spiritual growth, helping others. Not everybody recovers the second they say that third step prayer, but the book does promise if you do continue on with that contract with God, it will happen. I had what the book describes as kind of a white lightning experience where it happened immediately, and I'm very blessed. Therapy could never do that for me. I could never sit in therapy as a heroin addict who couldn't go an hour without thinking about the next time I was going to put that needle in my arm or smoke meth and jerk it at a motel for 2 days straight and be with hookers and you could never take that addict or alcoholic with this disease, that monkey on my back, and sit him down in a room with therapy and think that that alone is going to be enough to treat this disease and to walk out of there with that obsession removed. That's why I say following these steps, having a relationship, doing exactly the clear-cut, precise directions in this book. Not my sponsor's way, not his sponsor's way, the book's way. I have never seen a big book walk into an AA meeting and say, I relapsed. The book doesn't relapse because the book doesn't change. We take the words in here and change it. That's why this is a textbook. It's not meant to be read through like a book. A textbook is meant to be studied with somebody who's been through it. Because if you're like me, you're going to twist it, take words out and change it and make it work for yourself. That's not how it works. So there's a big difference between AA meetings and actual AA. And that's what I never understood. Going to meetings for all those years, I sat there at AA meetings, at therapy, at 20 different treatment centers, and I stayed sick. How could that be? Because they said meeting makers make it. People who go to meetings are the ones who stay sober. The only thing meeting makers make are meetings. I hardly go. I go to one meeting a week and it's on Zoom. And my purpose for going to meetings is to be there to offer myself to addicts or alcoholics like somebody was there to offer themselves to me. It's not because I think I'm going to drink or get high if I don't go to a meeting. I have spirituality for that. I have these steps for that, treating my head. So that's why I say, so therapy, I even went to therapy as an addict alcoholic a few years back. I said, man, I'm having what I think is PTSD, and I'm thinking having horrible, unhealthy sexual thoughts. I've talked about it in another video. I had dated a porn star for 2 years, and it really caused a lot of damage in my head about relationships. Every single time I got in my head and think that I needed therapy, it was always me missing something that I wasn't doing in this book. It was me. My spiritual life was not fit. Every time I got in my head and said, oh man, you need therapy. Now that doesn't mean you can't get use out of therapy. Therapy is a great thing with a proper therapist. I saw a therapist for a while. He gave me $1 million game that was life-changing, that I'm eternally grateful for. He also started scamming insurance companies while I was seeing him, and I figured it out. He was overcharging me, and I talked to my sponsor, and I couldn't see that guy anymore. Best therapist I ever had happened to be an extremely toxic situation, I found out. So I didn't go back to therapy because I had a realization. The things I went to see him about in the first place, I realized I wasn't tight with what I was supposed to be doing, and that's why I was having those problems. I wasn't praying for a healthy sexual mindset. And then I decided to put down the porn, and God guided me through that after the therapy. So I'm not saying you can't benefit from therapy. Don't get me wrong. Therapy can be a beautiful thing with a proper therapist, especially if he's only if he's a spiritual person or she, in my opinion. I'm not going to be a God guy and go to some therapist who doesn't believe in God, and that's not going to line up with me. So it's got to be the right therapist. So therapy can be a beautiful thing, but it will not treat the disease of addiction and alcoholism. You can sit in there talking out of the side of your neck for years, and it is not going to do what this will do in a matter of minutes. You can't take an addict or alcoholic like me who is suffering with abscesses up and down his body, overdoses off heroin, crystal meth in the hospital, on death's door, knocking on it with staph infections, MRSA. I was getting high in the hospital. I was having heroin dropped off because I was so mentally, spiritually sick, sneaking heroin in while they're treating me for abscesses. I'm in Cedars-Sinai for a week straight. For a week straight, because I have horrible staph infections, and I'm getting heroin. That's how sick I was. You can't put somebody like that in a therapy room and think that alone will treat the disease of addiction. We need something more than going to here and thinking our way out of it. Therapy has its purpose. We in AA believe people have purposes. Doctors have their purpose. Psychiatrists might have their purpose. You're depressed, you need medication. I'm a big believer it should be a very last resort, but sure, it has its purpose. AA doesn't say we solve everything, but don't go to those other things unless you've gone, this is first, because you'll see a lot of things clear up, and once you've engaged in this and put your heart into this, it seems like everything else clears up. It's amazing. So that's what I got. So my thoughts on therapy, and I'm going to bring my brother on. He's a what do you call it? A psychotherapist, and I'm going to ask his thoughts about it. But I'm pretty sure it's the same. I've spoken in front of his class at Wayne State University. I've given lectures about this subject, and I'm a big believer. You're spinning your wheels with therapy if you're trying to treat a disease of addiction and alcoholism. We all want a softer, easier way, because what these steps do is they make you look deep within yourself at who you really are. And there is no way around it, if you stick to that contract with God, that you're going to look deeply into yourself. And so any addict or alcoholic out there, please, if you're struggling, I would be honored to guide you through this. Out of the book, I've guided people all over the country. We do FaceTime, whatever it needs to be, and some of them have recovered, and they're helping other people. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. That's why I started the channel, and I got the email garagegymhomie@gmail.com. I would be honored to give my time to work with any addict or alcoholic. If you really have this disease and nothing else is working, these 12 steps are foolproof, always. I have never seen anybody put their heart into these steps and it didn't work. And if you tell me AA didn't work, I'm going to ask you if you sat at AA meetings or if you actually went through all of these steps. And 10 out of 10, you did not go through all of these. There was something missing from here, and we're going to dig it up and find it. That's what I got for you. Garage Gym Homie's always going to give it to you straight. I love you. God bless all you. Have a beautiful weekend. I'm out.